A very good morning to each and everyone watching Mama Rwanda'S television. Thank you for being with us in today's news edition. You're going to be with me, Kamikaze Gislaine. Now let's kick off with the news headlines. Rwanda'S UN Envoy thanks global supporters of Washington peace accords in push for regional stability. Rwandans businesses eye services export markets. On the international news, heavy rain causes major flood damage in Morocco's Nador province. Let's take a short break to be back into the news details. Welcome back. Let's start our news in Rwanda. Rwanda's ambassador to the United Nations, Mantengoga, thanked the representatives of countries who have shown their support for the talks aimed at resolving the insecurity problem in the region, especially those that led to the signing of the Washington Peace Accord between Rwanda and the DRC. He reiterated this on Monday in New York at the headquarters of the organization during the discussion of the Security Council, which reviewed the security situation in the Great Lakes region, especially in Eastern Congo.
The Republic of Rwanda and Democratic Republic of Congo on how to resolve our differences. And we request the Council to support us in that process. Rwanda will implement our commitments within this framework of Washington Agreement, and we shall continue to support the Doha process. Rwanda reiterates its full commitment to the Washington Peace Agreement and to the complementary Doha Declaration of Principles facilitated by the State of Qatar, both of which represent critical steps towards sustainable peace and reconciliation in our region. We urge the Council and international partners to support these African-led and US and Qatari-facilitated efforts as they build upon the foundations of the peace, security, and cooperation framework, dialogue, mutual respect, and regional framework. All I'm doing here, distinguished members of the Council, is to reiterate that there is an agreement between our two countries that we made within our sovereign competencies, helped by the United States, and Qatar continues to help. The African Union continues to help. We need your support. And we need you to give us the chance to implement the agreement as it is, and not to intervene in a way that may complicate that process or create deviations. So there is a need for that harmonization. Finally, as I conclude, I note the report and the way it has reported on hate speech, on the question of FDR, which is not a question about resources. It is a question about the existential threat it poses on Rwanda through its intent to commit genocide and its past when it was involved in the genocide. The question of the presence of mercenaries, the situation of refugees that have been in refugee camps for the past 28 years. None of these owned a mining site. These people who were cattle grazing, cattle, that was their lifestyle. But they have been in refugee camps for 28 years. And the attacks on civilian areas in Minembwe in particular, and the continued targeting of hate speech to Tutsis in the area of Uvira and in other parts of the DRC. On all these points, because we have been here before the Council not long ago, Rwanda stands with the submissions we made before the Council. I thank you, Mr. President.
Moving ahead, at the 4th African Health Tech Summit, Ministry of ICT joined government leaders, innovators, and partners to advance dialogue on how digital solutions are transforming healthcare across Africa. Minister of State If Iradukunda emphasized that the fusion of technology and health is no longer a choice. It is necessary for achieving true health security in Africa. From real-time disease tracking to AI-powered maternal health tools, Rwanda continues to champion innovation that strengthens systems and improves lives. Turning to the next story, Rwandan authorities are intensifying efforts to promote the export of services targeting both regional and global markets. The Ministry of Trade and Industry, led by Prudence Sebahizi, is spearheading initiatives to support local services providers in accessing new opportunities abroad. Key sectors identified include tourism, meetings, incentives, conference and exhibitions, transport, information and communication technology, professional services, financial services, health and security. To build capacity, the government is working with organizations such as the East African Business Council to train businesses on export models, trade regulations, and cross-border market access. Regional integration under frameworks like the East African Community is viewed as vital, particularly for facilitating mutual recognition of professional qualifications. The aim is to make Rwandan services firm export-ready, thereby diversifying the economy, increasing foreign exchange earnings, and reducing reliance on traditional export. By capitalizing on its competitive advantages, Rwanda seeks to become more visible and competitive in the global service export trade. Let's take a short break to be back into international news.
Bakiriya bacu turabamenyesha ko Danobe Home yabaye Smart Home. Ni impinduka zigamije kongera ibicuruzwa byiza kandi biramba. By'umwihariko ku biciro bibanogeye n'uburyo bwo kwishyura buboroheye. Wadusangaho dukorera KBC Kimihurura cyangwa ugasura urubuga rwacu wa/smarthome.rawa. Wanaduhamagara cyangwa se ukatwandikira ku murongo wa telefone ukurikira 0788 88 90 50 90.
Sirimuka na Flow. Hashijaka wisomera Flow, première bière bio muri Afrika. Flow iboneka mu bwoko butatu ari bwo Red Flow, Flow 58 na Yellow Flow. Izi nzoga zose zikudirwa umwimerere zikoranye kuko nta sukari cyangwa produit chimique iyo ari yo yose izongerwamo, n'ibinyampeke zikorwamo bihingwa mu mirima izira amafumbire mvaruganda cyangwa imiti yica udukoko. Ikindi kandi ntitera hangover. Inzoga y'inyabigwi ifite uburyohe n'impumuro bihebuje yengerwa i Burayi. Wayisanga mu gihugu hose ku giciro cyiza cyagabanyirijwe agera kuri 30%. Soma kandi ucurure Flow, wumva itandukaniro. Waduhamagara kuri 0788 314 481 tuyikugezaho aho uri hose. Guhahira kuri Rwanda'S ku masoko yabaye ubukombe online ku isi yose nka Amazon, eBay, Alibaba. Uri mu Rwanda birashoboka kandi byaroroshye cyane hamwe na Global Shippers Rwanda. Tugane tugufashe kugura no kwikorera imizigo yawe kuva muri Leta Zunze Ubumwe za Amerika, Ubushinwa, Ubuhinde, Ubuyapani, Ubudage na Turkiya, maze kugereho byihuse kandi nta nkomyi. Icyo usabwa ni ukwishyura 50% mbere andi ukayishyura umuzigo wawe wakugezeho. Duhamagare kuri 0784 651 740. Sanga ni makuru kuri wa/globalshippers.rwanda.com.
Welcome back on the international news. Heavy rain this weekend has caused major flood damage in the Moroccan province of Nador. The northeastern coastal city saw 66 millimeters of rain in just 24 hours, leaving streets, homes, and vehicles underwater. Princess Mojisha proceeds.
Let's start on African news, where heavy rain this week has caused major flood damage in the Moroccan province of Nado. The northeastern coastal city saw 66 millimeters of the rain in just 24 hours, leaving streets, homes, and vehicles underwater. Residents said the damage from the rainwater that accumulated dry valleys and creeks and overflowed. No fatalities were recorded, but several roads were damaged and schools were forced to suspend classes. Last week, Morocco's Minister of Equipment and Water said managing the risk of the flood has become a pressing issue for the country, particularly as climate change accelerates. He made comments at an unveiling of the new study on the flood risk prevention plans in the Western Bulgan Basin. Turning to our next story on the international news, the United States President Donald Trump argued all Middle East countries and interested states to work together to achieve sustainable peace in the entire region. On October 30th, city of the Sharm el-Sheikh hosted a Gaza Peace Summit. Egyptian President, U.S. President Donald Trump and Turkish leader signed a final Gaza ceasefire agreement. According to the Egyptian presidential office, the summit participants called for the implementing further phases of the Trump's plans to resolve the conflict in the Gaza Strip. On September 29th, the White House released the president's comprehensive plan to resolve the situation in the Gaza Strip. The document consists of the 20 provisions. Notably, it calls for the establishing temporary external administration, the Palestinian enclave, and deploying international stabilization forces. On October 9th, President Trump announced that after negotiation, Israel and Hamas representatives had agreed on the first step of the peace plan. According to President Trump, the agreement included the release of all hostages and the withdrawal of the Israeli troops and agreed upon line Gaza. On October 30th, Hamas and the Palestinian groups supporting them released all the Israeli hostages. A total of the 20 hostages were handed over to Israel servicemen under the mediation of the International Committee of the Red Cross, the already Israel territory. Coming to the conclusion of the international news, the latest attempt in Brussels to stop Moscow with a fresh round of the sanction and the force Vladimir Putin president into a ceasefire in Ukraine has stumbled upon an unexpected act as the Westphal Bank International, Austria's second largest bank and one of the Eastern Europe's lending powerhouses, in the lips of diplomat as they contempt with deep expectation at the contentious plan to compensate the corporation, which still operates successfully subsidiary in Russia despite widespread exodus of the Western business from the country. At the end of the second quarter of the 2025, Russian hard equity of more than €5.3 billion and served 3 million customers, according to the official data. But in January, the subsidiary took hit when the Russian court ruled it and had to pay more than €2 billion in damage of the Westphal Trading, Russian investment company. According to the Rising, with a repeat written question for the story, the dispute centers of the Sternberg, the Australian construction business whose shareholders include the Rasper and the Raiffeisen Ruhr, Austria and Vienna, one of the RIB core shareholders. Then launched a legal action demanding reparation for the frozen shares and the loss of dividends, having failed in Austria and the Hamburg claim in Russian courts, which eventually ruled in its favor and ordered payment of $2.1 billion in damages of the euros. Raiffeisen's lawyers complained the Russian court had engaged in intimidating tactics and halved the ability to present evidence. Princess Mugisha, Mama Rwanda'S TV.
As we come to the end of the news edition, let's remind you of the top stories that we talked about. Rwanda'S UN Envoy thanks global supporters of Washington peace accords in push for regional stability. Rwanda'S business eye service export markets. On the international news, heavy rain causes major flood damage in Morocco's Nador province. And this marks the end of the news edition. Stay tuned.